it. But anyway, you know, and I just hope that I don't get any more personal sort of attacks and things like that. And you know, and I really like Kathy as well, and I like and everybody. So, you know, let's just try and get through this, because it is really, really important, not just for Auckland but for New Zealand. And I've said my piece. So thank you.
Yeah. So the one thing that I think is very helpful there, Sharon, because we're going to spend a lot of time sitting in this chamber together over the next couple of weeks, is the high level of personal courtesy. So easy to fly off the handle around here. So I really encourage you all just to keep that modicum of courtesy and count to 10.
Yeah. I think a little hug over here could be
on
nice,
occasions.
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, no, that can wait. I've got you, Mike.
Might be a bit much
That
today,
can wait.
but
I've got
maybe later.
Councillor George.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And this is obviously an important process for this council. And you know, but I think it's also important that today that we all have the opportunity to put our views forward. And I don't think it's about the personalities, and it's not about the Independent Maori Statutory Board. It's about the process. The process. And the report at item 15 or paragraph 15 clearly, and 16 clearly says that the only body of this council that can approve the unitary plan is the governing body. The governing body. And we're following a statutory process. We're on a very tight time frame to finalise this unitary plan. And now just stay there, Councillor Phil Pinely. You might want to hear what I've got to say.
I will be here. Give me a coffee, George, because I know you'll be a while.
This process has taken a long time. And I'd say that the independent hearings panel has probably been going 18 months, 2 years. And we've been now, under the statutory requirements that we have, we're now required to make the decisions in pretty short time frame. And I've got real concerns about how we're going to run this, with the Auckland Development Committee doing some of the work and then reporting to the governing body. I just find that a nonsense. Quite frankly, it's duplication, it's not necessary, and I know what will happen. When it gets to the governing body, the Mayor will say, oh, look, this has all been talked through at the Auckland Development Committee. And we won't get an opportunity at the governing body when we're making the decisions. And this is a forum where we make decisions on behalf of the people of Auckland who have elected us to come here and make those decisions. And for us to get it truncated, which has happened, Mr. Mayor, you have to admit that with the annual plan or the long-term plan, one stage I suggested that should be dealt with by the governing body, and it was actually voted for by this group until the Mayor tried to change it, and eventually a week later it was changed. But, you know, I just think that this process would work far better if it was just handled by the governing body. And, you know, to have the matter dealt with by two bodies of this council, committee or groups of this council, I think is unfair. We've got no idea on how this matter is going to play out when it comes to committees or the governing body, and to have it dealt with twice, and because I believe that it will be a watered down, cut down version when it gets to the governing body, because it'll be said, oh, this has all been debated at the Auckland Development Committee. I don't think that's the right process. I think the Auckland Development Committee hasn't got the delegation to finalise this plan, Councillor Filipina. It's the governing body. If you read paragraphs 15 and 16, clearly sets that out at that. So I don't think that the personality should come into this. The Independent Maori Statutory Board, I don't know how they work, but I always think that they get their writing instructions before they get here, when they get their boxes dropped here and they read what they're to do. And that's not the process that we've been told that this is all got to be individual decisions by ourselves and how we've seen the process without, and we make the decisions without fear or favour. It's a significant decision. It's the biggest decision, as council has said, this council will ever make. And I don't believe that it should be done in the two-tier process that the Mayor has put forward with his motion that he's moved. So I'm not going to be supporting that, and ask councillors not to support that. It'll only get us into difficulty, I believe, and let's get it simple. I think that if we do that, we'll get through the process in the required time frame. Thank you.
Councillor Arthur?
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't want to go what has already been said by everybody else, but just two words I wanted us to take into consideration, and you've just touched one of them: courtesy and respect. Auckland is made up of nearly 200 different ethnicities. People who've come to live here. It was like winning the lottery to be able to get the opportunity to live in Auckland and New Zealand. They value that. They also value, since they've arrived here, that Maori are tangata whenua of New Zealand, and they've learned that. We've spent some time going over this document ourselves and finally went to the independent hearings panel. We have a document in front of us that if we don't move with it, other things are going to happen. I'm going to support the two-tier system for the simple reason that it is courtesy to allow the IMSB to come in and listen and have a say on that. And we owe that under the treaty of the founding document of the Treaty of Waitangi. That's the things we need to remember. But I just want to touch on the document in Auckland and the unitary plan and what it really means. It is going to be the founding document for the future. But look back over the last 60 years of Auckland. I can tell you, Freeman's Bay, out here, the old houses that were there, when they burnt down, you couldn't build another one because the sections were small. And they sat empty until somebody came out with a townhouse plan and they got snapped up and got built. So things changed. Then we came in with a 10-acre block and 50-acre block around the city. And that's changed. What we have now is a document that is not set in concrete, it's flexible. And over time, as the needs of the city grows, it will change accordingly. And they've drawn up the plans with a lot of massive yellow, taking consideration there will be changes needed, and we'll change that without having to go through this whole process again, I hope. So I just want to say that to you, and I'm not wanting to go over what everybody has said, but look, I was one who marched against, I marched to have 2 seats for Maori on this table. I marched for that. I was against the IMSB when it came through. But we have seen very talented people come forward with the IMSB who've made huge contributions to us, and we need to take that into consideration. And I personally think, as we come to the final race, the final straight of this race, that it will be the greatest insult to leave them out and not be part of that final discussion. At the end of the day, we make the decision, but it's only common courtesy to give it to other people to make a contribution to it. Let us not forget that the hearing committee had 2 Maori on. There's Morrison and John Kiriki. And so I'm sure the IMSB will respect the input that they had put into it. But it is common courtesy to allow them to be part of this final discussion before we make that final decision. That's all I want to say, sir. Thank you.
Kia ora, Arthur. Councillor Michael.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members, I've been listening very carefully to the points made on both sides of this debate, and given the importance of the unitary plan and the direct impact it will have on the lives of Aucklanders, it's a pity that the debate really has focused on the Independent Maori Statutory Board. I think the way through this problem is to go by the book, and that requires good faith on behalf of each and every one of us, and also yourself, Mr. Mayor. If this is to be a genuinely two-stage process. I want the right to fully participate, to represent my people, the people of Waitemata and Gulf, and you haven't been a particularly great advertisement for governing body processes. Just this morning, I wasn't allowed to ask a question of Penny Bright. Not allowed, just ruled out of order. I would have thought my seniority in local government would have at least allowed me the courtesy of asking a question, but forget about seniority. I am elected by the people to be here. So I do wonder about this two-stage promise, whether it's going to be all the work done in the committee and then a rush-through job in the governing body. Because if that's the case, then I can't support your recommendation. So I want some assurance that the governing body will be able to partake in this final decision-making in an ordinary manner that allows all the elected members to participate and not just be ruled out of order. Can I have that assurance, please, Mr Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you.
We don't get it.
Thank you. I also want an assurance that issues of conflicts of interest that we have been lectured about, really, ad infinitum, are actually upheld evenly, and whether they apply to members of the governing body or members of the Independent Statutory Board. Now, Councillor Stewart, apart from the Independent Marriage Statutory Board, has seemed to be the focus of discussion in this item today, and I don't believe, and I disagree with members judging Councillor Stewart, but nor do I believe that Councillor Stewart should be a judge in the matters regarding the submission that she wrote. So I think that we need to take an even-handed approach to everyone, regardless of their race. So when it comes to this process, it's been argued that we need to hear the Maori voice. Now, normally in a democracy, that voice is decided democratically. I've had a problem with the Independent Marriage Statutory Board from the very start. This was not something that was decided on by and democratically. It was worked out in Parliament by leading players of the national-led coalition, principally former MP Rodney Hyde, or former Minister Rodney Hyde, and it was quintessentially non-democratic, but however, it is statutory. Parliament decided, and Parliament decided that the Independent Marriage Statutory Board should be able to advise the Council on matters of natural and physical resources, which is essentially a code word, I guess, for resource management matters. However, this Council, in its wisdom, or otherwise, decided to extend that membership over and above what's in the statute to matters particularly on rates and finance. And I recall at the annual plan meeting, we had a member of the Independent Marriage Statutory Board effectively stopping a debate on chemical sprays on a point of order. And yet, when it comes to points of order, the Court of Appeal had deemed his election, or appointment, I should say, to the board unlawful. And this Council has just looked the other way when the Court of Appeal made that judgment.
Yeah, terrific.
And so, Mr Mayor, I will support a two-stage process whereby the recommendations of the Independent Hearings Panel can be given detailed consideration. I will be objecting to anyone who tries to vote when they have a clear conflict of interest, and I note that at least 6 members of the IMSB were involved in submissions to the unitary plan, so the unitary plan panel certainly heard their voice, as we did before the plan went into the unitary independent unitary plan panel.